Britain keeps its secrets at Kew. 11 million documents, open to the public once they're old enough to be safe. But a department can borrow one back, and never has to return it. 402 are now missing. These are 6. And the last one brought down a British government. File 6. The polio vaccine tests. Start with the one nobody expected to be sensitive. Among the files reported missing are records concerning tests on polio vaccines. Routine-sounding medical papers from an era when Britain was rolling out mass immunization. And that's exactly why it matters. Nobody borrows a file about vaccine testing because it's thrilling. Whatever the reason it left Kew, it wasn't glamour. Which forces the question that runs through this entire video. If the dull ones go missing too, is this a cover-up? Or is it just a filing system that leaks? Hold that thought. It's the honest question, and I'll come back to it at the end. File 5. The Churchill Letter. A letter from Winston Churchill, dated 1947. Not a policy file, not a dossier, a single piece of correspondence from the most documented Briton of the 20th century. A man whose every memo, minute, and scribbled note has been catalogued, published, and studied for 80 years. It was in the National Archives. It is now listed among the records that cannot be found. The archives themselves separate the losses into 2 categories, and the language is worth hearing exactly. Missing means misfiled at Kew, usually during the returns process after someone has viewed it. Misplaced means lost while on loan to a government department. One is an accident on the premises. The other is a document that walked out of the building. File 4. The Umbrella Murder Waterloo Bridge, September 1978. Georgy Markov, a Bulgarian dissident journalist working in London, felt a sharp jab in his leg while crossing the bridge. A man behind him picked up a dropped umbrella, apologized, and walked away. Markov died days later. In his thigh, pathologists found a metal pellet, 1.7 millimeters across, containing ricin. It is one of the most notorious assassinations ever carried out on British soil, and it has never been solved. In 2015, Foreign Office officials removed a small number of papers from the National Archives file on the Markov case. They later told the archives those papers were nowhere to be found. Not the whole file, a selection. That distinction matters enormously, and it's the thing that makes this case different from a misfiled folder. Somebody read that file, chose specific pages, and those specific pages are the ones that no longer exist. File 3. Palestine Britain governed Palestine under a League of Nations mandate from 1922 until 1948. One of the most consequential and contested administrations in British history. Files concerning the British colonial administration in Palestine are among those reported missing. They sit alongside losses covering the Falklands War, the troubles in Northern Ireland, and long-running territorial disputes between the United Kingdom and Argentina. Look at that list as a group: Palestine, the Falklands, Northern Ireland, Argentina. Those aren't obscure administrative corners. They are, almost precisely, the list of subjects on which Britain is still asked difficult questions today. File 2. Israeli Nuclear Armament. This one has a title, and the title is the story. A Foreign Office file from 1979, catalogued as Military and Nuclear Collaboration with Israel, Israeli Nuclear Armament. It sat within a series of British government files on arms control and disarmament in the 1970s. The dossier appears likely to have been connected to a United Nations resolution from the previous year carrying that same headline, one which concerned what it described as increasing evidence of attempts to acquire nuclear weapons. A file about nuclear proliferation held by the Foreign Office, opened to the public, and then gone. An MP from the parliamentary group on official archives told the BBC he was concerned by the losses. The National Archives said it was running a robust program to locate the documents. That was in 2016. File 1. The Zinoviev letter, and the one that changed British political history. 1924. Britain has its first ever Labour government, and it is fragile. Days before a general election, a letter appears in the press, supposedly from Grigory Zinoviev of the Communist International, instructing British communists to prepare for revolution. It was a forgery, and MI6 officers were involved in bringing about the downfall of that first Labour government through it. Labour lost. The scandal has been argued over for a century. The Home Office file on the Zinoviev letter was held at the National Archives, open to the public. Then Home Office civil servants took it away. The entire file is now lost. And here is the part that I find genuinely difficult to explain away. The Home Office declined to say why it was taken. It declined to say when or how it was lost, and it would not say whether any copies had been made. 3 questions, 3 refusals. The honest answer. So, conspiracy or chaos? Let me give you the case against myself because it's a real one. 402 files out of nearly 11 million records. That is a tiny proportion. And one analysis argued the mundane explanation is probably the right one. The scale of borrowing supports that. In 2011 alone, 9,308 files were returned to government departments from Q. The following year, 7,122. The year after that, 7,468. Move that many documents, and you will lose some. Of the records lost on loan between 2011 and 2016, the worst offenders were the Ministry of Defense with 19 and the Metropolitan Police with 10. The Guardian put the wider figure at almost 1,000 files, each thought to contain dozens of papers. So yes, most of this is probably ordinary institutional carelessness, but carelessness doesn't explain everything. It doesn't explain officials removing a selected few pages from the Markov file and losing only those. And it doesn't explain a department refusing to say whether a copy of the Zinoviev file exists. What this really exposes isn't a plot, it's a mechanism. A British government department can reach into the public archive, take back a document that was declassified decades ago, and never bring it back, because there is no obligation to. You don't need a conspiracy when you have a system that works like that. The National Archives holds 11 million records of what Britain did. 402 of them are gone, and the departments that borrowed them are the same ones being asked what was inside. Which of these 6 would you most want to read? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe, because next time we're going through the files Britain hasn't lost, the ones it simply sealed until 2050.